Hi friends, welcome to episode 93. This really is part two of the bank holiday weekend because I couldn't cram everything into episode 92. This one will feature getting the advert panels back onto the side of the bus. I'm also going to feature the work we did on the cab seat. The swabs have arrived back and the cab seat is now reconstructed. So I'm really pleased with that, and hopefully you will be too when you see it. So anyway, so this is like a bonus edition, and we are nearing the end now of the long summer holiday when I've got to go back to work 5 days a week. So I'll be back up here at the weekend. Hopefully, I'll do at the end of this week, the next edition, 94, will include a bit of a summary of an update of how I felt I've got on over this last 6 weeks of the long summer holiday, because I've been spending an extra 2 days a week up here, so now we're a total of 4 days. So I'm going to do a little bit of a summary of how I felt I got on with it. And anyway, I've got some stuff to do today. Today is actually Thursday. So I'll see, I might add a few more things onto this later on. So anyway, sit back, enjoy, and as I say, at the end of all of these, let's see how we get on. Right, so we kick off with the Essex countryside, looking really beautiful at about 6 in the morning, but we've got work to be getting on with. Do you remember this? No, actually this from the previous episode. That's that copper strip that runs along between the panels. And on the advert side, they were missing, and I bought a small amount of copper to actually replace some around the back, but it's going to have to use an older bit that I took off somewhere else. I think it came off the offside. So I'm going to recycle that and use that instead. Yeah, I know this is incredibly boring, but that's really what this is about. So I'm straightening it up because it was in a bit of a curly mess. It's got a few holes in it as well, so I'm not entirely sure it's going to be brilliant. But and it's not long enough as well. It's about 2/3 of the length that I need. So I'm going to have to use some of that new copper stripping that I bought as well. And there is a shot of it somewhere, although you can't see it in this picture, but there was the curled up roll was sitting somewhere on the framework of the bus. I just noticed my coffee there on top of the fuel tank. There we go. I'm going to do that chassis. I'm going to spray that with chassis silver. That's a little job I've got to do before I start putting all that lower woodwork back in. Otherwise it just goes everywhere. So yeah, the fuel tank and stuff like that. So there I am, restoring that little copper strip that was previously a big ball of metal. Note also I've got my nice new overalls on as well. So there we are. So I'm going to have to pop this back on the bus, and it's going to cause me a little bit of a problem getting it back in with some panel pins. I'll show you that in a second. Right, you catch me removing the masking paper from around the little drain outlet from upstairs. I pre-painted those because when I put the panels back in, there's only a small amount that shows, but I thought I might as well get that out of the way now. Right, so there is that copper strip. As you can see, it's a little bit shorter than it should be, although actually by now I've got another bit. But anyway, also that new copper makes an appearance on the edge of the frame. I'm going to have to order up some more because I was planning to use this for somewhere else on the bus, but there we are. Now the other thing is it's held in place by panel pins, and fantastic idea. However, that piece of wood is about as flexible as a rubber band. So every time you try to hit the nail and get the thing in, I was struggling to get the nails, kept dropping them, it just flexed around. So what I had to do was, because there's nothing holding it in, what I did was I had to put a block of wood behind it. Yeah, so I never throw anything away, and that poor bit of wood has seen many uses, as you can see. It's also got covered in green paint as well. So by doing that, I was able to get the nails to go in. As I said, it was just flexing too much, and it was proving a right pain. So that's putting the stripping in. Now, once I've got the stripping in place, I can then start to put the advert panels back again. But that was going to be a bit of a problem because at that point in the day I was on my own. This is Bank Holiday Monday, so I was trying to work out how I was going to get those two big panels up whilst on my own. And I've used string, and I'll come to that in a second. Right, so after the paint disaster and having just enough of that lovely Techaloid paint, here are the two panels sunning themselves in the entrance to the shed. Now, I know I mentioned this in the previous episode. I left them here in the sunlight. You can actually see the sunlight on the floor rather than putting them outside because they were still a little bit tacky. And on the following day, the sun was beautiful. So I took the opportunity to pop them both outside. Here's one of them sunning itself against the shed door. Although they're already surface dry, although they're oil-based paint, they can take a long while before they actually harden off fully. So by sticking them outside, the sun, the rays of the sun will just harden them off really quickly. So we can then manhandle them. If you, in the winter time, with that old Techaloid, you could literally go away on the Sunday having sprayed a panel and come back on the Saturday and find it still wet, just because the temperature up there doesn't get much more above freezing during the week. So it's not a good time to paint, plus the fact it all goes mucky as well, doesn't work. So as luck would have it, with that lovely heat, I was able to pop it outside, and you could probably fry an egg on that. It was so warm. So so there we are. So that's the panel sitting outside the shed. Right, so here's a flashback to the summer of 2023 when I finally found the RT amongst all the crap that had been parked around it. Anyway, the reason for this picture, this old ancient picture, is this, the rain strip. Now, I call it a rain strip, but Brian Watkinson tells me, no, that's not a rain strip. It is apparently a guide for the advert sign fixers to know where to fix the advert. There is a bit missing on that front panel. There's about 6 inches of it has fallen off at some point. But the thing is, the confusion for me was that rain strip, on the off side, there was a bit of battening behind the panel that holds it in place. But on the near side, for some reason, that battening had been, the rain strip, aka guide, or whatever you want to call it, had been screwed through from inside the panel, and I don't know how they did it. And there is a join somewhere in that strip that runs left to right, although it's very well hidden. So I don't know how they managed to get that up there. And the other thing is, right on the centre there, that piece of beading which goes underneath, they all go underneath the rain strip, is actually screwed through. There's a screw right underneath that bit. So I don't know how they did it. They achieved it somehow, but the screws are on the wrong side. So what I've decided to put some battening on the back of the panel, and then fingers and toes crossed, that might well work. Right, so the reason for that battening is there's nowhere else really to screw it to. You can screw it to the panel probably with self-tapper screws, but I'm not really keen on self-tappers. So hence the reason why the battening will sit behind the panel, and will then, when I put the rain strip or weather strip, or whatever you want to call it, back on, we'll then screw through the panel and then into the battening, and that will then support that. But as you can see, there's nowhere else really to put it. So hence the reason why I've come up with that arrangement. All I'm doing really is replicating what was on the back. Right, we're going to come back to this later on because I really do want to put those adverts back on the bus. But meanwhile, we've got a couple of other things to be getting on with. You might remember this. This is back in March of this year, which was in episode 65. And this is me unboxing the cab seat for the RT. Now, I'd sent this off to an upholsterer down on the south coast, and he basically replicated what was there, which is very understandable because I do exactly the same thing. And when I unboxed them, really happy with them. And somebody contacted me and said, actually, Dean, it's the wrong colour. They should be brown. So I went through the shed, had a look to see what I had, and I found an old brown RT seat, and I sent that off to Paul, the upholsterer. to get them, the two of them, done in brown. So this is take 2 of me unboxing the new brown seat. Right, so this is our second take, the bank holiday weekend. I had actually, Paul sent me this couple of weeks back, and I'd kept it in the shed for this moment, really. Anyway, here we are. So here is the seat. I want to have a look and see if it is the right brown. It looks pretty good, actually. I'm really quite pleased with that. Paul's done a load of seats for Preserve buses. He's done some really good work, so he's very experienced at what he does. So that's the bottom swab, and this one that's going to play up and not want to get out of the box is the back swab. Now, I had actually also painted the little panel. There's a little panel that goes on that, so I painted that so that yeah, so it looked good. So anyway, there we are. So there is the 2 seat swabs. Interestingly, this seat swab had a date of September 1957, although this one's just got a small amount of graffiti on it. So all I need to do now is to put that back on the frame, refit the back panel and stick it back on the bus. Right, so while I'm doing that, popping these seat cushions back onto the frame, I have painted the frame ages and ages ago in anticipation of putting those other seat swabs on. So that was done. I think I might have to have cleaned it off a bit because it got really dusty at the back of the shed. These are the original nuts and bolts. Now there's a little slight problem as they were very fractionally out of alignment, but I don't think that's going to matter much and no one's going to see that. So all I've now got to do is to refit the bottom swab and then refit the little plate at the back. So if you're looking to have some seats refurbished for your Preserve bus, drop me a line and I'll send you Paul Toomer's details, but he's done loads. Anyway, here is the finished product. Back on the frame, top and bottom swabs on, and that little metal plate that I sprayed a week or so ago. That's the original plate that came off, in actual fact. There's a few dents in it, I was going to knock it straight a bit. So there you are, all ready to go back into the RT. Do you remember this? This is the rear lamp box with the indicator and the stop and tail light and what have you on there. So it was in a pretty poor condition when I took it out of the RT a few weeks back, actually, just the beginning of the summer holiday. So this is it now. I have, as you know, the previous edition, I've done the box, I put all the wiring connections back in and all the little sockets and everything. Everything that you're looking at on that bench at the moment is the original bits from the box. That's the original sort of back plate, then the front and everything. So that's all the original stuff, and it just goes to show how robust this is in order to transform it from a pretty grotty, rusty box to this. So yeah, so this is me popping it back together again, and once that's done, I'll be ready to put it back onto the wiring loom of the bus and test it out and make sure everything works. Well, I don't think there'll be any problems with it because there's nothing really likely to foul on it. So there we are. There's the little lamp box being re-put back together again. And abracadabra, here it is, all back together again. So the top one is, as you know, the one on the offside with that little blanked out indicator plate for the left hand side. I'm going to repaint that on the inside black just because some of the blacks come off. All of that, I took that off and I polished it all up using the polishing machine. So they have come up really nicely compared to where they were before I started. And then you've got that, the bottom one is the nearside indicator, which was a later modification. That's when the one obviously on the top unit wasn't very clever. So they fitted this and it's a little bit boxy. It's certainly not to the nice RT design that we know and love. And just below that is the T-key holder with a little blanking plate. And the purpose of that little white blanking plate is to prevent light coming through the T-key holder because there's a little slot at the bottom of that, the box, which illuminates the registration plate. So that was to cover that. Now that T-key lock, although they are commercially available, it is the original one and it was stuck solid. So I managed to clean it up, free it off, and get that to work absolutely fine. I can't put it back on because I made a slight mistake with the screws. I bought a load of screws to put all the blanking plates back in, all the other bits and pieces rather back in, and they were slightly bigger. So it's not a problem because I'll order some more up because I'm sure I'll need a load more in the future. So I'm going to order some up, and then all I need to do is to refit them back on the buses, which is not going to happen quite yet. It's going to be a few weeks because I need to put all the back panels back on, and I've got to get the back of the bus paint stripped and ready for the repaint. So yeah, so at the moment this is it, and I think that looks all pretty good. It was great to see at the weekend Tom Bouston, who's pictured on the right. Tom is currently in the process of rescuing one of the very last RTs to operate in service for London Transport. It was a red RT, obviously, and it's RT3911. Now, it was sold by London Transport at the tail end of 1979 to well-known bus dealer Ted Brakell, who then sold it on to a firm who converted it into this. It converted it into a CAF. So Tom's got a lot of work to do to put it back into how we all know them to be, if you put it that way. He's got a bit of a head start on me because he is by profession a carpenter, and there's an awful lot of wood on an RT, and he's shown me some pictures of it and the standard it is at the moment, and he's clearly got his work cut out. He popped in to see me on Sunday because he'd gone to collect some RT bits and pieces from a local restorationist, and he popped in with some biscuits and bits and pieces. But anyway, this is the picture of the RT when it was used as Annie's calf. But in happier days, here's a nice picture of it at Heathrow on the 140. The blinds have been masked down because it was one of the buses towards the end of the RT era. Some of them ended up scattered all over London, including Leighton and in this case Holloway. So this one worked on the 19, which is why if you have a look at the VAR point blind, it's been masked down to accept route master blinds. But yeah, I wish Tom all the best with it. It's going to be a long old project, and he likes popping in to see me to see how I'm getting on with mine. And he made a comment. He said, "You're getting on with it really quick, Dean." I don't feel it's like that at all. But nonetheless, it was great to see Tom. And Tom, thanks very much for the biscuits. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Well, I'm going over old ground here because I know I already said this. These advert panels have dragged on a little bit longer than I really hoped they had done. The problem was, as you know, I used that new paint and I couldn't get on with that. So I ended up using the Tecoloid, which is lovely paint. I really like Tecoloid. I can get on with that. But unfortunately, that takes ages to dry. Mark was up here yesterday and I sprayed the panels at about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I had hoped that with good sun outside, they would have dried off fairly quickly, but sadly they didn't. It was windy, I couldn't take them outside, and by the time that the wind had died down, the sun had gone away. So sadly, I couldn't put them up yesterday with Mark's help. Now, regretfully, Mark's not going to be here for well over a week, but I still want to get them up there, and I'm going to have to work out a plan to see how I can get these two panels on the top of that bus. Now, they're not heavy, that's the thing. They're actually quite light, but they are very long, which means they're unwieldy, and I've got to try and get some very tiny screws in to get them into the right place. So I don't get them in the right place and the whole thing's not going to look right. So, yeah, I have to come up with a plan of action. Let's see how we get on later on.
Right, before I get on with the exciting stuff of putting the advert panels up, I need to mark where they need to go. Now, I know that might seem logical, but where the little advert beading is, I need to make sure that the panel lines up with the the battening that I put at the back, plus the fact that at the bottom there you've got this piece of wood that runs the almost continuous length of the bus to the rear blind box, that supports the advert panels slightly. There's I'm trying to think how many it is now. It's about 9 screws in each section, just sort of rather industrially, just plonked in there. There's no finesse about it. But anyway, so I need to make sure once the panel's on, I need to know where that bit of wood is, so I can get those little wood screws in. Right, so this is how you do things on your own. There's 2 bits of string there. One bit is in the centre, holding the middle in. That was my safety bit of string. And then there was another bit of string right in the very far corner on the left-hand side at the top there, which was the main bit of string. So what I've done is I've used that to roughly position one end of the panel, and then I've gone to the very far end and then positioned that, check that works, and then I've gone back to that one to make sure it's still in the right place, and I did have to adjust it a couple of times. So that's how you do things on your own. I will point out, by the way, if I happen to have dropped that panel, it's pretty much game over, because it would have just buckled and I would have lost it. But anyway, it looks quite nice here actually, because it's nice and shiny, but after I managed to get all my fingerprints all over it, it didn't look so good. But anyway, yeah, so that is now positioned. That's panel number 1, and I've now got to do panel number 2, and now I've worked out a sequence of events. Fingers and toes crossed, it should work. But then, just as I was not expecting it, Peter Veares turned up on Bank Holiday Monday, and he offered to lend a hand, which I'm really grateful to Peter, because it saves using all that string. So anyway, here's Peter helping me out get this panel back in place. As you can see, even with 2 people, it's not easy. But we got it to work, and it is now in place. So thanks very much to Peter for turning up at absolutely the right time. So with Peter back in his barn working on his bus, all I need to do now is just to drill all the holes that are needed for the wood screws. I've got a couple in, obviously. There's a few, it's about 4 I think, holding the panel in place. So now it's in place, all I need to do is just drill all these holes. And I know I've joked about this before, but I think whoever designed the RT had a liking for wood screws, loads and loads and loads of them. But anyway, so there we are. So they're only little ones as well, and tiny little wood screws that hide behind the beading. So that's that little project well underway. Right, then finally it's time to get the laser out. I use a laser just to line up. It's probably the best way of doing it actually. One way of doing it is probably measuring it and marking. But you might remember earlier on I had the marker pen out, and I made some marks either end, one up by the blind box end and another one up on the front wrap round. So that laser line is giving me a straight line on those panels. Where I am here, there's 9 screws, not necessarily spaced equally. There's clusters of 3. There's 3 clusters of 3 basically. So what I'm doing here is I'm just marking up with a pencil on the panel, because when I'm there, it blocks the laser, so I can't see exactly where I am when I'm drilling, and I don't want to get the alignment wrong. So that's basically what I use the laser for. So there's these little screws that go along there, plus the fact we ensure that I call it the range strip, but it's the advert strip at the top. It ensures that is also straight as well, because it's very easy to get these things a little bit wonky, and I don't want it wonky. So there we are. So that is the advert panels pretty much almost completed in terms of fixing them on the bus. I've still got to put the beading back, and I've still got to put that advert strip back on, but I'm going to leave that for another day. Right, and there we are. So I think it's going to be a wrap on this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I'm looking forward, as usual, to getting back up the barn. Now the kids are back at school, unfortunately, and our workload has now increased, as a result of which I'm back to just doing the weekends. I had hoped I was going to get a lot done, actually, over the school holiday, but it does drag a bit. And I'm a bit finicky about things as well. As you know, this panel that you're looking at, this has been rubbed down about 3 times to try and get it right. But and it's not the finished product, by the way, because when eventually I've finished doing all of this and loads of filling and all the rest of it, I shall hopefully drive the bus away to someone who's going to repaint it for me. But I want to make life as easy for them as possible. So that's a wrap on this episode, guys and girls. Thank you for watching.